Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. And we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Thursday. It is June the 6th, and that means that today is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. As we alluded to yesterday, the president is overseas, and he is talking about that. We're going to talk about it as well. If you guys are not joining us on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin, please do so. You can join the live chat, which is where? This side? This side? That side, right there. All right, on the screen as it scrolls by this morning. Make sure you've hit the like, you've hit the subscribe. Make sure you're following us on wherever you guys look, but the chat lives on Rumble, so if you guys want to join us there, that's where to do it. I think we've got a good show today for you. I've got my friend Garrett O'Boyle who's going to be joining me. We're wearing the same color shirt. It's an OD green shirt in memory of the men who wore this color, went to war, tried to keep this country where it is. And I'm slowly healing up to the point where I'm feeling fairly warlike again. I'm going to say that I'm 10% better than I was yesterday, which means that from 80%, we're at 88. So Frankie Figs can freak out about that. And if you guys don't know, you don't know. But we're going to be bringing on Garrett in just one second. Before we do, I want to say thanks to my friends over at Catholic Vote that fund and keep this program running. There have been some questions about how Kyle Seraphin is able to survive. One of them is financial solvency because we're intelligent. And the other one is because we've got really good backers, like people that care about faith, family, and freedom. CatholicVote.org is my friend. They are a outstanding ally in this fight. They're all in for Trump in a way that I am not, so you guys can appreciate that, I am sure. And if you want to support their efforts, go to CatholicVote.org. You can donate to the cause that they are doing. They are doing targeted voter get-out programs in places they think that we can win. They are using money judiciously, and unlike some other nonprofit type groups that spend money on taking young women out to drink and getting them hammered, they're very responsible about how they use their money. They're trying to influence votes to save this country. I think you guys can support that. CatholicVote.org is the way to do it. And I want to show you, this is the still from the set that, yes, I built with my own two hands. This is the new set for Between the Lines. If you have not seen it, it's pretty slick. There's going to be a good D-Day episode coming out today. I think there are a couple of things, and today's theme that you will find on Between the Lines is that you should always cry out to God, but you should also row for the shore. It's a meditation that I've been thinking about, particularly when I was feeling sick. And it is a little push for us to remember that when we cry out to God, the answer is not, do what I wish and save me the way that I want. But in fact, that we are supposed to ask that not our will, but his will be done. And that is the hardest thing I think there is. We're going to get right into today's show. First, let's go ahead and bring on my friend, my guest. There he is. Can you hear me? Garrett O'Boyle.
I can hear you.
Outstanding.
You may have seen me just nodding my head like this when you were talking there about your upcoming Catholic Vote release today, because that's it. That's it right there, man. Right there. Thanks for having me back. Already off to a good start.
It's so easy. Garrett and I have this really interesting kinship. He just left me a message last night, and I was going to share just a moment of it. I stepped out of the office right when they pulled my badge and my gun when I was suspended from the FBI, and I told my wife that I was coming home, and I asked her to put my body armor out by the curb so they didn't have to come into the house, and I had to go and get a couple of magazines out of my garage, and then I think we chatted, and I kind of just told you this scenario, and I know you've had that same experience. You got to watch me go through it, and then you got to go through it. And now we get to see people calling us feds, these evil wimps that have never put it on the line. I think today is one of those shows when we're going to be talking about men who threw it all in the gap because of something they believed in. And I think the point that I would like to get to, and we'll reflect on it towards the end of the show, the point that I want to get to is I don't think America is a country that can send men into a D-Day again, because we don't have the belief, we don't have the courage of our convictions. Right. And if you're a hedonistic nation, then how on earth are you going to get men inspired to go and throw their lives into for something that's bigger? I'm curious if you have thoughts on that. I know you know a lot of soldiers. I know airmen, and I know Marines, and I know sailors as well. So your thoughts.
I do have some thoughts on that. Initially, I find it, I guess, divine is the word I'll use, because it's not a coincidence. But you said they don't have the courage of conviction. And I was in Idaho about a week ago, a little over a week ago now. And that was part of what I presented on, was the courage of conviction. And because I'm sure, like me, people have told you, man, Kyle, you're so courageous. You're so strong. You have all of the things you've gone through and done. And even now to be slandered as a Fed because you have put in the blood, sweat, and tears to raise the level of what you do for a living now. But that terminology right there, the courage of conviction. So I said, as part of this presentation, I'm not any more courageous than anybody else. I have fear. I didn't want this to happen. I thought I was going to be an FBI agent. I know you did too. And I just did what was right. Not because I have some extra piece of courage. It's because I have that conviction part. And I think that's what led someone like you to join the Air Force, someone like me to join the Army, someone like all of those World War II guys who joined, some of them even lying about their age so they could get in when they're 16, 17 years old. And, it wasn't like it is now where you have to have 10 different forms of ID and a birth certificate and all this to enlist. It was show up, here's my name and my date of birth. And, oh yeah, maybe I changed the date by a couple years, but hey, hey, we need guys, just bring them aboard. And off they went. And I was thinking about this yesterday too, kind of in the lead up to D-Day. D-Day is one of those days. Recently with Steve on AMRAD, I mentioned Memorial Day and 9/11 and July 4th. Well, D-Day's in that bunch too, where I really get a little more reflective on America and soldiering and men. And D-Day's rough for me now, man. It's rough because, one, like you said, I don't think our country has enough true men that they could send to a D-Day anymore. And that should be frightening. That should tell you that the Visigoths are through the gate and Rome is a...
You think we don't have enough men that would do it? Or do you think that those men would not be acceptable to the society that they would be willing to defend?
I think a little bit of both. Because I think of me, I would never, back in 2012 when I got out of the Army, for some different reasons, I already arrived to the position where I would never recommend anybody join the military. And it's only gotten worse since then. And now it's, if you want to be a savage warfighter, good luck. Good luck. You mentioned it yesterday with some of the stuff that our armed forces are focusing on DEI wise. I saw a couple days ago, Naval Special Warfare, freaking Naval Special Warfare, tweeting out about Pride Month.
Yep.
Good luck with your D-Day. Good luck.
What did you join the military to do?
To kill. And people, oh my gosh.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what an infantryman does.
That's right.
And heading in that's what you're going to do when you sign up in a time of war.
That's right.
It was 2006. It was right in the middle of the GWAT. And I said, the infantry. Well, you could do anything you want. You could do anything you want. You have a very high GT score and a very high ASVAB score. You could do anything you want.
You can go and find a nice supply job where you handled all the books and you learned a skill. Garrett, you could have learned a skill.
You could be military intelligence or military police.
Yeah,
no, the
like,
infantry.
No, I'm here to put warheads on foreheads. That's what I signed up to do.
Yep. And you mentioned these people who, oh, I think they're a Fed op or whatever you want to call us or use or say. My boots have given more to this country than people who speak like that. My old dusty combat boots that have been in a box for over a decade now, they have given more.
I still wear the are they Danners? What are they?
Danners, those are good ones.
I got a pair of boots that I still wear on a regular basis. They've got hundreds and hundreds of ruck miles on them, and they've got actual blood from actual service members that we have actually done, training and then real world medical treatment on, because that was something that I had to do. And was it overseas? No, it was not. And I regretted that. That was the thing that I always wanted to go do, was put myself overseas. I didn't even get that opportunity.
That's what you joined for.
It's what I signed up to do. Yeah. It's like signing up to go and play the game and nobody lets you play it. I'm playing a different game now. We're involved in a different war right now.
Different war. Yep.
But that being said, I've got boots that have service member blood on them, and I still mow the lawn wearing those damn things. I've got, I carried the names of guys that did the same exact training, went through the same units that I did, from Lackland Air Force Base all the way to Herbert Field, where we interned them, 862 plus miles. We walked those things with a ruck on our back just because it was shitty and hard, because they'd already given their life so we could do a little bit just to remind ourselves that life is tough and you're supposed to do it for tough things. I'm going to pivot into some stories here because this is actually all going to go somewhere. So let's dig into this. And I think one of the things that's really hard to think about is that America doesn't have the ability to do the thing that it did. So here you have CNN lamenting that Biden's D-Day visit may mark the end of an American era. And of course, Stephen Collinson, who's the analyst that writes this, he's famously a Biden apologetic. His statement is essentially that he's concerned that Biden may be the return to normalcy, but it's also possible that he's just an interregnum period where we're going to go back to right-wing populism. He laments the idea, is America really back? Because that's what Joe Biden apparently said after winning in the 2020 election. We say winning in air quotes here. And then this is the actual CNN claim. Like, this is the stuff that people on the political left are reading. He lived up to his words by wielding the most effective leadership of the Western alliance since George H.W. Bush at the beginning of the Cold War. So that's the kind of character they want to put him in. George H.W. Bush oversaw America topple the Soviet Union. And then what we know is that they, failed to actually move on from that. And they are still adjudicating this Cold War. He's got this concern about idolizing dictators, Donald Trump's first term. It's not a bulwark of stability. It's an unpredictable and disruptive force, blah, 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 blah. He's got a mix of isolationism and populism. The United States used to not want to get involved. That was the whole point. America used to try to stay out of things unless we were required to get into them. I've actually got a speech that was written by Eisenhower that I'll read you guys at the end of the show about personal responsibility, because Eisenhower prepped a speech in case D-Day failed. And you'll be shocked. He didn't blame it on the MAGA Republicans or whatever the day's, Democrats or the people that he didn't agree with politically. And he didn't call it on the weakness of the troops or some other sort of political weakness. He said, it's my fault if we failed. They did their best. And I did the best I had with the information, but I own the responsibility. It's a thing that's sorely lacking right now. So America being back, America requires personal responsibility. It's exactly what you talked about. That's conviction. That's the minute when you look into it and you go, this is my decision. I'm going to make it, and I accept all the cost, however heavy they may be. That's the difference between what you and I have done, which is not exceptional. It shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be. No.
It should be expected.
Yep.
And instead, what we have is a nation full of people that are looking to whine and push their responsibilities on someone else. You know what? I actually have a little video of that. I think this is the video. I didn't label the last two of them. This is something, we call it the cheapest citizenship test in America. Do you know what the citizenship test is? What is it? Come on, Garrett.
It's the grocery cart.
And what does the citizenship test ask of you?
When you are done with your grocery shopping, do you take the cart back to the cart return, or do you just leave it in the parking lot? And it asks nobody, you're not going to get in trouble. The store isn't going to fine you. They're not going to let you not shop there. They're not going to let you not park there. They're not going to call the police. So there's literally no consequence to you if you leave your shopping cart just in the empty space next to where you parked. But the citizenship test asks you, are you willing to just do the right thing, even though there's no reward and there's no cost other than maybe 20 seconds of your time, depending on how far away you parked from the cart return. So it's just that. Are you going to do the right thing?
That's it.
It's very simple.
Okay.
Very simple.
Hopefully I've got the right clip queued up here. Like I said, we're reaching into the grab bag here, unfortunately. I think this is it.
I'm not returning my shopping cart, and you can judge me all you want. I'm not getting my groceries into my car, getting my children into the car, and then leaving them in the car to go return the cart. So if you're going to give me a dirty look, fuck off.
There it is.
That's it.
That's why we don't win. That's why we can't have a D-Day.
Right. Oh man, dude, there's so much in that little clip because you're a mother. And look, lady, I'm not judging you. I'm not going to judge you. That's not my place. But I will point out your error and your flaw as a parent. In the book of Proverbs, it says, raise up your child in the way he should go, and he will never depart from it. Never. Your child will never depart from it if you do your job correctly. And your job, as much as you want to say we can F off, as much as you want to say that because you're feeling judged because you know it's wrong.
That's it.
You're teaching your children incorrectly. And that is in large part why we got to where we are today. Why our generation and maybe a little bit of above us, where we see this toppling of our society, this crumbling of a nation that was truly great and incredible. And in many ways, we still are the best, but we're seeing it happen right before our eyes. And it starts there. It starts with the shopping cart. If you're not going to do the littlest thing properly and teach your children to do the littlest thing properly, how are you ever going to win on a D-Day? Give me a break.
She's saying the simplest things too. She's saying my convenience and my interest in my own timeline is more important than any dents that may occur to your car, any sort of rolling or blowing around, the fact that we are going to put other people out. It's because they exist to serve me. And when you start looking at the world and what can it do for me, I got this, one of our little trolls in our comments yesterday was very upset, maybe the day before. He's like, you got to do the John F. Kennedy. Don't ask what your country's going to do for you. What can you do for your country? I agree with you. Yeah. That only works on a segment of people that are willing to hear it. And there are a lot of people that are not willing to hear it. And if you want those people to get involved, you're going to have to start changing your messaging up, unfortunately, because that lady is not listening to that message.
No.
She's not interested.
She doesn't care about that.
So
she's interested in the opposite.
And if you want to win an election, you better start by talking to her where she's at. Because preaching at her, obviously, she already just told you, F off. That's what she thinks about it. It makes me kind of sick. It also makes me sick that I see this kind of thing. I'm going to throw this on the screen here. This is coming from, what is this, NBC or MSNBC? MSNBC. Wow. You'll love it. This is an op-ed written by Senator Jeanine Shaheen and Senator Thom Tillis. That's a Democrat and a Republican from New Hampshire and North Carolina, if my numbers are correct. It says losing on D-Day was not an option, nor is losing today's fight against authoritarians. The winds of authoritarianism are blowing in every direction, leaving no nation, not even our own, untouched. What do you think they're talking about there? We're seeing a picture of men that are departing a landing craft, stepping into heavy surf that is waist deep. They're carrying uncomfortable loads and weapons, and they're stepping. That looks like a really, really far run on that beach, moving in slow motion through high water and then through sand. It's the stuff of nightmares, with machine gun fire blazing all around them, with artillery shells dropping, with aerial bombs being dropped from above. The sound of it must have been incredible. You guys can watch movies and it won't anywhere get close to what these men stepped off those crafts from silence into that. And I'm sure of it. And in the meantime, you've got these two people. Who are these senators? One of them was a woman who owned a small business in New Hampshire. And the other was a guy who worked for IBM, also not a service member, has no experience of this. But they're going to lecture you about what it takes to, quote unquote, storm the beaches on Normandy in the name of liberty and freedom. And so they have this little op-ed about how we can't fail. It's all about Putin. They can't move on from the Cold War. Garrett, you know what really strikes me about these kind of things? It's always people that have no skin in the game. They always want to lecture you, isn't it? And the second thing is people that think that they can lean on the past to make a political point today when they've never actually taken on a burden that's anything like this. I want to know how much they've ever bled for this country. How much have they sweat? How much have they seen? How many of their friends have been sent home because they lived and grew up in a time of peace? And now they're going to draw parallels. And they use the same damn word, storm the beaches, the way they talked about storming the Capitol on January 6th. The parallel is obvious to those of us who see. That's what they use. That's the word of invasion. That's what troops do.
It's disgusting behavior. It's gaslighting. I mean, that whole thing is just a big gaslight. And not to mention just a degradation of the greatest generation and what they did, not only for this country, but for the world. And to compare the authoritarianism of Nazi Germany and the Axis powers writ large to anything going on today. And oh man, it's so frustrating because you mentioned Putin, you mentioned January 6th. There's so many layers to all of those things. Like, hey, why don't they write a piece about the coup d'etat that was backed by the US in 2014 in Ukraine, which is a decade old at this point, but that is really one of the big crucial key points as to why we're essentially at war with Russia now. Ukraine is sending US paid for and US manufactured missiles and rockets and whatnot into Russia. So, but yeah, the big boogeyman since forever ago. Oh, we got to stop Russia. It's always Russia. Even we have been linked to Russia.
Well, you know what's really good?
It's absurd.
This piece finishes with a push for NATO. It's 75 years strong, and so we've got to make sure we keep it strong. Of course, we have to do that because military spending, because that's what these people are about. What's incredible to me is they didn't invite Putin, whose country sacrificed 70 million lives in pursuit of stopping the Nazis. 7-0. They had soldiers and they had civilians. Their country was destroyed by World War II. And they were an integral part of making this thing work. Because if there's not a two-front war, Hitler destroys us. We don't ever take that beach.
Yep.
And they didn't invite Putin because why? Because we're too good to talk to people now. We're too good to acknowledge the history and the purpose and the sacrifice that was made 80 years ago, which is not a political issue at this point. It's not up for debate. The Russians did their part. And the people in Europe should be forever grateful for the work that was done there.
Absolutely, they should be. You know, if for people who are watching, you can see it behind me, the little 101st Airborne patch in my going away gift that I got from my platoon. There are still monuments to the 101st in Holland for what they did there and how they helped liberate those people. And even to this day, they celebrate American troops coming there. It wasn't just America who won World War II.
That's right.
Russia was part of that as well, and other places, England, other places too. But I think still of right now with Putin, think of his main argument. And look, I'm not saying Russia is perfect. It certainly is not. Like, I remember this is probably about a decade ago, the band Pussy Riot. I think they were like locked up because they were lesbian and speaking out against.
You could go into a whole thing. Mike Benz does a whole thing about that, and that's all scandalous too. So there's actually more to it there.
I'm sure. But what is Putin's main argument? Stop encroaching NATO. So who's the authoritarian here? Is it NATO and all of the American backing and the coup d'etat in Ukraine just to keep encroaching on Russia? Or is it actually Putin who's saying, hey, I've been telling you for years, stop, because we're a sovereign nation and this is looking more and more like an act of aggression by all of you. But, we can't talk about that because Putin bad. Putin bad.
They're living the Cuban Missile Crisis like every day.
Yeah.
Encroachment, getting closer and closer. Like, all of this stuff is pretty obvious to those of us. Anyway, it just makes me sick that we're using the language of January 6th, and that just tells me that January 6th was BS. We knew that from the beginning, but the fact that they're going to use the same language as that of the beaches of Normandy, it's disgusting. And the fact that they're using it as a shill. They're using it to shill for more money, for more war efforts, for more pushes into military industrial spending, the kind of things that the men who fought this war actually warned us about.
Yeah. And that's the piece right there. That's the piece right there. So before I enlisted, like many young men, especially when the drums of war are being beaten, but I was like, I'm in, I'm all in. I'm enlisting when I get out of high school. I'm going. I was duped like so many, thinking I'm doing the right thing, thinking it's all for a positive, good cause, thinking America is always the good guy. Well, it took many more years and learning and growing to realize we aren't always. And then on top of it, to be able to go to war and then to come back with this totally different perspective and want violence and war and aggression to be not part of my life ever again, but to maintain the requisite knowledge and skill set. And actually, after I got out of the Army, I increased that skill set.
That's right.
Because you don't get to pick when the violence comes. You don't get to pick when the war comes. But then to see people like this who wrote that article, dude, it makes me so mad because, like you said too, they have not sacrificed anything. They don't have one of these bracelets for their friend who was killed in war. And they don't care about the people who get killed in war. They just care about lining their own pockets and stoking fear and aggression. And then the men of our generation who fought to war, who trained to go to war, who wanted to do the hard thing for the right reason, in the right way, at the right time, or at least we thought. The last thing we want is war. The last thing we want is violence and aggression. And man, there's a whole generation of us now, but even that, they've turned it on us and, oh, you're the enemy. You're the enemy.
That's the militia violent extremists. That's why that's one of the first things that we put out there and showed that they were targeting guys like Mike Glover, simply because they understand that the opposite of war and being overwhelmed by war is readiness. Mm-hmm. And you hedge against that by getting yourself prepared so you don't have to. It's as old as time. The preparation for war prevents war in many ways. That's how you keep the peace. Let me do a quick sponsor. We talked about patriotism and a little bit of naive patriotism on both of our parts. You got your Patriot cooler tumbler sitting there in front of you? Oh, here it is. Look at that one. Same as me. Ladies and gentlemen, you can get your own. The Suspendables support them and are sporting them. Go to patriotcoolers.com. The promo code Kyle, K-Y-L-E. Again, K-Y-L-E. Why so slow, Kyle? Because some people listen to this in hyperspeed and they want to hear it. That'll be a normal speed for them. Patriotcoolers.com is where you can go if you want to pick out any of the tumblers and click customize it. It's just below where it says add to cart. And you can customize it with the Suspendables logo that Garrett O'Boyle came up with, whether it be the Betsy Ross flag we have, which has the Suspendables badge, whether it be a badge, whether it be the badge and stars. There's a lot of different options you can do. You can engrave it. You can have it printed. All of those are available to you. There's also the rifle for the Last Line Substack, which is the one that I've stacked on top of mine, and you just saw on the screen. PatriotCoolers.com. Check them out. And we're getting into the summertime when it's going to be nice to have a little bit of hydration next to you. You guys should definitely be doing that. Keep yourself hydrated. And if you're looking for a long-term, durable, rotomolded cooler, look no further than my friends at Patriot Coolers. They do make an outstanding product. Anybody who gets one, in fact, George Hill just got one. He just said, thanks for the discount, Kyle. I said, yeah, no problem. That's what we're all about here. I want to keep pushing through some of this stuff. Let's talk about our ex-girlfriend. What's that? Oh, and it works.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, seriously, man.
That's a superior product.
Hashtag not sponsored, at least for AMRAD yet, but it's the best thing. It's so good. It's great. It doesn't spill, especially if you have kids. I mean, yeah, maybe they'll get this open.
How long did it take you to test whether or not it was going to spill, by the way?
Oh, immediately. As soon as I filled it up.
The first 10 minutes, too. Why is that? All right, let's throw this on here. This is the ex-girlfriend here. I'm going to go down a little storyline here, Garrett, so walk with me. The FBI was resuming social media outreach, is what they're calling it. We'll call it censorship, what it is. This is a story that comes from, who is this? The lovely folks over at NBC News. The agency is putting briefings on the agency put the briefings on pause amid lawsuits and government scrutiny. That was the Missouri v. Biden stuff. And they decided that they are going to go back to it. They're going to go back out and reach out to social media, Google, Microsoft, Meta, etc. And they're going to try to tell them, that's going to include YouTube and all the other censorship routines, like, hey, We need to watch out for foreign propagandas. We need you to do our government propaganda, not foreign propaganda, and possibly not Americans who have what we call malinformation, which is information that is really dangerous and damaging to our narrative. So go ahead and let's just reinstitute the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force. And the Foreign Influence Task Force is a headquarters initiative that is settled in many of the field offices. It's the ones that did social media exploitation, and they did a lot of fun things, like, lie to us and make sure that we were only pushing the approved narratives. Now, one of those pieces of lie, what was the biggest one that was revealed? Do you remember?
It was the Hunter buying a laptop.
Kaboom. So here we go. See, Garrett's always going to come up with it. Zuckerberg this is our old stories, folks. This is not new. This is August of 22 that you're seeing on the screen here. Zuckerberg. Okay, Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, tells Joe Rogan that the FBI warned them prior to the Hunter Biden laptop story, right, about censorship and about how we were going to have some real problems, that they were going to have a hack and leak. This sort of misinformation campaign was going to come out, and that it was probably Russia. This was the thing. We had FBI senior executives in the San Francisco field office go out there and aggressively and deliberately lied. Well, you say, well, maybe they didn't know. What do you think, Garrett? Maybe they didn't know?
If you didn't know, you should be fired for incompetence. And once you take a look behind the curtain, of course they knew. You don't think Elvis Chan knew? You don't think, what was his name? Was it James Baker? Something Baker. Who then ended up getting hired by Twitter? You don't think they knew? You don't think these people knew that the Hunter Biden laptop was legit? Here's how you know that they knew it was legit. They get the information about the Hunter Biden laptop, and then because this is how these things work in the FBI. You get the lead, you get the info, like, hey, Elvis, don't even get me started on this guy. And you get the lead, and then, he's the liaison.
You think Elvis could have stormed the beaches in Normandy?
Oh, never. Okay. Never. Not a chance. Not a chance.
Do you think he could have carried that pack?
No, absolutely not. If somehow he wound up there, he would have ended up at the bottom of the harbor or whatever. But so he gets the lead, he gets the email, however it comes into him, and the case number, or he can go look it up on his own, the case for Hunter Biden for the laptop, so he can go look and get some facts and say, okay, what do I need to go actually talk to Twitter about here? And the FBI has known, and it's starting to come out. Right now, for those of you watching, you just saw it.
Here it is. Do you know why it's coming out? Because Hunter Biden is on trial for gun stuff. Right. And here it is, folks. The highlights of it. FBI agents testifying about Hunter Biden's drug use, his large cash withdrawals. Man, if I could speak, huh? The agent, who's a witness for the prosecution, a witness on behalf of the government, testified about the authenticity of Hunter Biden's laptop, which has been the subject of rumors and speculations for years. Oh, so wait a minute here. What we're saying is that the FBI, which lied to the American people, pushed a lie down our throats prior to an election, tampered with the results because of this explosive thing that happened, essentially allowed a president to be called a liar, because that was the claim that was being made by Donald Trump. Are you ready for this one? Here we go. Garrett O'Boyle, what do you see there? Trump was right about Hunter Biden's laptop from hell, although Biden claimed it was Russian disinformation. This is from USA Flippin' Today.
Yeah, so this is, okay, man, and there's so many things, and you know, there's so many topics out there where it's, conspiracy theorists, cancel them. Cancel the conspiracy theorists. Look, the truth is starting to come out. The damage is done. You don't live in the land of the free. You simply do not. Something like this doesn't happen in the land of the free. This is third world communist hellhole garbage that happens there, where everybody knows the truth. Everybody knows the truth. And everybody who was paying attention did know the truth, that Hunter Biden laptop was legit. That's why Twitter basically blocked the New York Post entire Twitter account. And then they didn't even get it back, I don't think, until Elon bought it. And then it was all over USA Today. Guarantee you, if you look up USA Today, Hunter Biden laptop, what would that have been?
Russian.
October 2020?
Yep. Russian
I
disinformation.
guarantee you will find articles about that.
And look what it says right here. This is Joe Biden saying it in the middle of the debate. There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plant. And they've said these are 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties, saying what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. CNN fact-checked it and said that Trump, quote unquote, spread Russian disinformation during the debate. Fact check, that's false. CNN did the work of the intelligence industry, not the work of journalists. We're living in a time when we don't have bravery. We don't even have people that are willing to say things that are true, that are inconvenient truths. People are running from the truth and they are only supporting their side. I did a whole episode about tribalism versus truth. America, at least in the 1940s, got people to believe that we were interested in truth, that we were interested in being a shining city on the hill, that we were in it for a moral right. May or may not have been true. We probably got pushed into World War II for a lot of reasons that were economic and financial and so on. There was a lot of change that got to happen, right? There were things that were done during wartime, before and leading up to it, that were unscrupulous. But the men who went out there believed that their country was righteous. And if you don't believe that your country is righteous, you're never going to storm a beach. You're never going to step into that gap and lay down for your buddy and fall on barbed wire and have your friends run over the top, which happened. It's this systematic devaluing of the land of the free. All of our rhetoric now is just nonsense. It's the stuff they just toss around. They cheapened it. And it's disgusting to watch. Here's a little taste. You sent me this clip earlier, Garrett. I'm going to share this as a World War II vet who thinks he's a foreigner in his own town, in his own country. I think you and I are foreigners like this. Probably many of the folks that listen to the show have exactly the same sentiment.
With all of these brothers and people who experienced the war as you did, and also the subsequent wars in Korea and Vietnam, what do you think about the state of our country today? How do you feel about the country that you worked so hard to stay free, to keep free?
The real truth?
Yeah.
I feel like a foreigner in my own country lots of times, and I don't like it. It makes my heart real heavy. And I just hope we can pull out of this. There's too much Hollywood going on in Washington all the time. The important subjects they don't cover. So the thing is, I hope all the guys will rally up and we'll go back and straighten it all out.
When you're here with all of the...
So there you have it. What do you think about that, Garrett?
It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because, well, one, I can only imagine how heavy it makes his heart being a World War II veteran. If it makes my heart as heavy as it does at 37 years of age and having gone to Iraq and Afghanistan for a year, and I mean, it's apples and oranges. I had a World War II vet tell me once that he couldn't imagine going to war how we did because our enemy didn't wear a uniform. And I was like, yeah, but look at just the death total of U.S. troops in World War II versus U.S. troops in the GWAT. And he was like, I don't care. You guys had it harder. And I was like, I can't accept that, dude. I can't accept. Like, so the heavy-heartedness that comes with where our nation is headed, because of comfort and weakness, I really think that those two go hand in hand. When you're really comfortable, you get really weak because it's easy. And humans are creatures of habit.
Our lives are examples of that too. Everybody has gone through a period when you are less hard, when you are less capable, and then you get challenged. I watched you get, the same thing that happens to everybody. You get put into a hole. You focus on things that are not your health, not your fitness, not your capabilities for war and violence. So you put on weight. You kind of wallow. Maybe you're drinking or eating too much. You're focusing on things that are not keeping you sharp. And then I watched you also turn around and go, this is not how I'm built. I'm built for much more capable things. And I watched you just trim down, and people can see now if they watch the older episodes, there's a lot less Garrett on the screen right now than there was not too long ago.
Yeah. And as you know better than just about anybody, that was a rough skid. And I've said it before. I said it in my transcribed interview. I think whatever, it doesn't matter. That my time in Iraq and Afghanistan, I thought were the hardest time of my life. Yeah, I mean, think about it. I'm getting mortars shot at me. I'll share this story. It's probably fitting for D-Day. When I was in Afghanistan, I wasn't able to call home very often. We were really busy. And, there was only like a couple phones. One of them went down, and everybody's trying to just call home every now and then. I hadn't called home in weeks, probably 5-6 weeks. I call Heidi. We were newly married at the time too. No kids. We were young. We were 24 when I went off to Afghanistan. And I call her up, and I'm on the phone for a minute with her, maybe after her not hearing from me for weeks. Well, then we get some incoming, and it landed right by our little fake MWR, which is, what is it? Morale, welfare, and readiness, where we were.
Recreation, I thought.
Recreation. Yeah, that's it. Thanks. We weren't, we were on a tiny fob Normandy, or not fob Normandy. That was Iraq. Fob Tillman in East Paktika province, named after Pat Tillman.
Sure.
Because it was right around where he got killed by green on green, by the way. But,
yep.
So you can hear the incoming, that makes a distinct whistle type of sound. And then you can hear the explosion because it was really close. And then you can hear all the debris piling into the building on top, into the walls. And I just was like, hey, I actually got to go. And she was like, oh, okay. What? And I was like, I got to go right now. Sorry. And, not, hung up. And then we went on a commo blackout after that because somebody in a nearby outpost, or might have been a FOB, got killed. So then they cut comms because they don't want you going on Facebook. They don't want you calling home. Where we were, I don't think I even knew the guy's name.
Yep.
But then I wasn't able to call home for another 4 or 5 weeks. And then I find out once I get back from Afghanistan that she heard all that, I'm thinking hey, yeah, I got to go. I just got called on the radio, whatever.
She knew.
But she's like, I heard all of that. And I was like,
right. That's hard. Now that incoming is more psychic than real. It's not physically coming at you yet. And your kids are in the line.
Yep.
Not a young wife, not a woman that you just committed to, who's got the same sense that you do, that the world is full of hope and capabilities and hopefully everything works out. Someone who's seen a little bit more and who knows exactly what we're up against. A massive federal government animal that will come for your whole family. And they crushed your family. We got to watch it happen. Most people got to see you wear your heart on your sleeve a little bit in front of congressional testimony. The same members of Congress just posted this, a year ago. This is not new. FBI employees warned social media companies about a hack and leak operation. They knew the Hunter Biden laptop was legit. And we just found out today, Garrett, which we'll probably cover tomorrow with Steve Friend. I better put both of us on there. Judicial Watch just got FOIA results that shows that the FBI leaked documents and information about you and Marcus and Steve to congressional Democrats ahead of your testimony on May 18th of 2023. Our own agency was sending the incoming, the people that supposedly were your employer and claimed to be your employer today.
Of course they were. But they're the good guys, everybody. Your government are the good guys. And they want you to believe it and lap it up and just focus your ire at Russia or Trump or wherever. And they're doing this nefarious activity. Oh, man, it's hard to not just fly off the rails.
Let's do some gaslighting because I like this a lot. I've got a story about swing voters that should keep the Biden administration humble. I don't see them showing humility. I don't believe that we are going to have a business as usual election. That's just my take as I keep seeing the behavior and the information that rolls out. But this is Claire McCaskill talking about the Hunter Biden gun case. Look, I think Hunter Biden is going to be acquitted, or he will have a hung jury and there will be no conviction. That seems pretty obvious to me. I would be shocked if they actually held him accountable because that doesn't sound right. And if they do, it'll be a slap on the wrist and you're done. But she's over here saying that Republicans are hypocrites because they're trying to enforce gun laws. Listen, lady, you don't get to pass the gun laws. You don't get to go out there and tell us that we're all very bad people for owning a gun and then not holding your old accountable. That's all we're talking about. And then the second thing is we keep living in this strange world where indictment equals guilt. And that's the way that we're seeing people in the media play it, that indictment equals guilt. Doesn't matter. Like Trump has been convicted of these garbage charges in New York, but he's been indicted of a bunch of others. And so have other people for elector fraud and all these other kind of things. And all those people are guilty before we started. That's a country that doesn't understand its own principles. It's another reason why there is no D-Day that could happen again. It's the last time we might even be remembering it because Russia's not even showing up there. We can't even honor the people that did the right thing when they did it at time. Listen to Claire McCaskill for a second making these arguments. Tell me if you feel like a hypocrite, y'all.
And the irony here, I mean, let's step back for a minute and think about this. It's a gun charge. Now, understand that what the Republicans want to do is allow everyone to buy guns everywhere without ever having to tell the federal government anything. Right. They are so totally opposed to the idea that the federal government gets to know anything about them and their gun purchases. They don't believe in the law that he is being prosecuted under.
How do you feel about that?
Well, that's not true. I mean, like, that's not even true. Like, no reasonably minded citizen. So this is the piece. Most people are not advocating for anarchy. Most people are not advocating for lawlessness. We are advocating for reasonable laws. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see the draconian measures that have been taken against your Second Amendment rights. Do most of those laws regarding our firearms and our actual God-given Second Amendment right, do those need to be repealed and overturned and rescinded? Of course. But who out there is advocating for a drug user felon or I'm mixing two now, a drug user, so it's illegal at the state level and at the federal level to have a firearm if you abuse substances?
I'm sort of okay with it. I'll be real with you. You know why? I don't think our government has any business telling anybody what's right and wrong at this point. I think
that's true.
I think they've actually abused themselves of their ability to call balls and strikes. And so if we're not living in land of the free, I live in land of the absolute. I'd rather say, you know what? Let Hunter Biden carry a damn gun. It matters not to me. I carry a gun. I'm smarter. I'm more physically fit, and I train harder. So when a Hunter Biden crackhead who doesn't happen to be picking up bags of cash around the world and actually is looking for bags of cash, like, I don't know, in the front seat of my truck, they're going to get smoked because I saw him coming, because that's what I do.
Yeah.
I'm 100%. Like, who needs a gun more than someone who was a convicted felon, by the way? Like, either they serve their debt to society and they're allowed to be out of prison, or they're not. If they're too dangerous to own a gun, why are they free? And if they're not too dangerous to be in public, then they can own a gun too. Are we citizens or not? Like, let's live up to our freaking creed. So
valid and fair.
You know what? Like I'm an absolutist on this kind of stuff. And that's why I'm more extreme than anybody on the Republican side. I'll take people like Lindsey Graham to the wood chipper, and I will feed them into it face first so they can see the blades turning. Because I don't care what these people think. They have no moral standing on people like you or me. And you and I could have this real fair debate about it. At the end of the day, I bet you end up on my side on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I've come a long way there since some of you may know this. I don't talk about it a ton, but I have a twin brother who is in prison, and he went to prison for 8 years, and he got out, and he's back. He's back in prison right now. And I don't know. I think he needs to hit bottom, and I think he needs to turn to Christ. And it sounds like perhaps he is, and he's starting to truly do that. But who knows? Time will tell when he gets out again. But yeah, the recidivism rate is very high. However, like Kyle just said, if you paid your debt to society, you committed some crime, you went to prison, and you're all served up, you probably should be able to vote. You probably should be able to own a gun and exercise all of the rights that everybody else has, because you were punished for what you did. So now we need to restore you into society. That's how a godly kingdom would function.
This is the argument against the Cold War issues, Garrett. We basically did the same thing to Russia that we do to every single person that comes out of prison. Ex-con, ex-felon, prior felon, take your pick. We treat somebody like the thing that they did in the past is the thing that they always done. Even if we've set up a bar, they've jumped the bar, whatever that is, even if we don't think it's righteous, but they've spent the time in, that's what's legally prescribed. So either we live by our own code or we don't. And the fact of the matter is, in the United States, we don't. Yet another reason why we won't have another D-Day type experience. People think that you can turn the tide overwhelmingly with a great kinetic action. And you can only do that when you have moral righteousness, the courage of your convictions, and you are doing the right things the right way for the right reasons. We don't do that in this country anymore. We don't believe in that. We don't believe that somebody can step forward and do something righteous after they've done something. They can't redeem themselves, which is a Christian idea. We've lost Christian values in this country, and we do this instead. I got a really good one for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
You think the boys that stormed Normandy could have fathomed this clip being overwhelmingly true and also disgusting? I'm going to run it twice.
Excuse me, ma'am. No porn at the bar.
Oh, it's okay. I'm transgender.
Oh, I had no idea. Do whatever you want all the time. Excuse me, ma'am. No porn at the bar.
Oh, it's okay. I'm transgender.
Oh, I had no idea. Do whatever you want all the time.
Do whatever you want all the time.
Do whatever you want. And that's it. That's it. Truth is no longer absolute. It's just whatever you want. Whatever you want, just do whatever you want. And especially if you're on the fringe here with some of these more hedonistic ways of living.
I'm going to show you.
Oh, you're trans? Okay, go ahead, do whatever you want. I mean, yes, that's Family Guy, and yes, it's funny, very funny. Actually, Seth MacFarlane is a gem to society, but part of the reason it's so funny is because of the truth there.
That cuts right to the bone right there. In the meantime, this is what's going on in this country right now. Actually, you know what? Let's do a quick read for our friends over at MyPillow. Folks, if you want to sponsor the program, or if you want to support us and you're looking at bedding, if you're looking at towels, if you're looking at sheets, if you're looking at slippers, rugs, they had 50% off the slippers I saw. Or sorry, the what do you call them? The shower robes were on sale the other day. If you guys are interested, you can go to mypillow.com/Kyle. Again, mypillow.com/Kyle. Use promo code Kyle, Kyle, for up to 50% off anytime that you go and check out there. It's the same you'll get. Same deal. Promo code's always the same, but you're supporting our show and not some of the others. Let me just pivot right here because this, speaking of guys who could use a little bit of masculinity and maybe a mustache, Mike Lindell famously has that mustache. These guys could use one. So this is surprising results of a focus group. Swing voters ought to keep Biden humble. This was a poll that was put together by the New York Times and Frank Luntz, who's no friend of anybody that's conservative, but he is a functional human being that does this stuff. And the thing they said was essentially the conviction of Donald Trump didn't change the mind of anybody on the MAGA side. It didn't change the mind of anybody on the left. It didn't convert them over. But what it did do for those in the middle is a couple of things. Number one, they said it looks really, really ugly and it reflects poorly on Biden. They didn't like the way that he handled it. It looks like he's trying to get him off the board. And it looks like that people, when asked, did anyone have more faith in the justice system because of Trump's conviction? Nobody said yes. But when they asked people, do you have less trust? 4 of the people raised their hand and said yes. They said that you have to remember that Trump is the choice of millions. He represents a shock to the system. His supporters don't hold him to the same ethical standards. He may be an anti-hero, but he is a guy that is representing people, and trying to take him off the board before he gets a chance to actually even be adjudicated in an election looks bad on the other team. I don't see them worried about this stuff.
No, they're not. And you think of Biden, man, he's one of the most proudful people I've ever observed.
Mm-hmm.
He's so prideful. Proudful, I said? That's not a word.
That's all right. We know what you meant.
He's so prideful, and he just continues to lean into that hubris, even in his demented state. Whenever he has a moment of clarity, you can see it. It oozes out of him, and it has for decades and decades and decades. Because what did he say? You don't F with a Biden. Didn't he say that a few years back when he was a little more clear-minded?
Sure.
And then didn't he recently just show up and visit Haley Biden, even though heading into this? And I also think of the previous article you talked about that had the storming the beach D-Day picture and the word authoritarian in the title. This is what happens in an authoritarian or totalitarian state.
That's
the
right.
quote-unquote justice system, which many of you probably recall, I refer to as the Ministry of Justice, a la George Orwell, because that's what it is. It's not truly for justice, or at least in many ways, it's not being used like that. And this focus group is a great example of what most Americans are seeing. Who the hell would have more trust in the justice system after seeing what the government, so think of the current government that is in power. And, oh, in New York, it's a DA. Yeah, but like an assistant attorney general resigned from that position to go and work in New York. Give me a break. Like, open your flipping eyes.
Yeah, the
Like,
books.
and that's part of.
They're playing cards open, and they don't even care because the hand can't be lost. I'm going to show you another little article that pops up here, and I think this is actually telling. This is coming from CNN. Judge Eileen Cannon rips up the court schedule for the Mar-a-Lago case in ways that benefit Trump. They are very, very upset about this. Again, they're worried about what she's doing. But what's the essential fact of the matter? The judge in Trump's document case down in Florida is doing something that makes sense in a world that doesn't make sense, which is to say, we are looking at the first time a former president is being charged with something that makes very, very little sense. And so she's taking all the time in the world to get it, to benefit the defendant, which we have a presumption of innocence in this country, God forbid. And she is setting things out to take her time to work through these problems because this is a novel problem. This is a thing that has never happened before. And so wouldn't you want to go slow and do it right and not treat it like every other case? Because there is no other case that's just like it. It turns out that's the right way to do things when presented with a novel problem. You take all the time necessary to say, hey, number one, is this even a real problem? No one's ever had this problem before. Maybe we should consider that. Number two, were these things done correctly? Because no one's ever approached this type of defendant before. So maybe we should look into that. He's getting all the benefits that you're supposed to get, which is in a country that used to believe that the innocent remain innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. We've given that up right now. And so that's why you have CNN Politics covering down on a trial. It should be in their like law and order section, I guess, saying that she's following a procedure. She's doing the work, which is taking time to go through something. It makes me so confused, but I guess not confused. I guess it just makes me weary that the leftists are trying to rush to judgment when it benefits them. And they have no compunction whatsoever of having that cognitive dissonance. Like, hey, this could work badly if it happened to us.
Right.
Unless they never think they're going to lose power.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's that hubris again. They don't think it'll ever swing back. And hey, it may not. I mean, if you keep fixing voting and just trying to lock up your political enemies, like, yeah, it may not swing back or it'll take, a revolution, another revolution someday where people are like, okay, we've had enough for real this time, but they're going to come for the guns even more before we ever get there.
That's true.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting piece. And, it's something you talk about and we've talked about before is an America. We were supposed to have an America that was better for our children. And we're not there. We're not there right now. I know you know that. And it's like, okay, well, we'll do our piece, whatever that is. And, I think of some of these politicians we've touched on today. And I think back to D-Day, to 1944, June 6, 1944. And then fast forward to the end of the war. And then what happened? Then all of these greatest generation veterans came home and America really started to boom. But the other piece, and I hate to even say it, is a lot of those guys ended up continuing to serve in other ways, becoming a president, running for Congress, running for state house, whatever. And they had the background and they had the fortitude that was given to them through their training, through their experiences, through that blood, sweat, and tears, through the guy. I think my father-in-law, he just mentioned this to me. He started watching Band of Brothers again. And the two guys are chatting and then bombs come in and the guy goes to talk to the guy again after the bombs and it's gone. The guy's gone. It's just a hole in the ground. Like that's not just fiction. That those things happened and then those men came home. Some of them, the ones who lived. And then some of them helped to continue to make this nation powerful and mighty and good and strong.
Knowing that somebody else had to give up everything for them to do it.
Right. And today you have a Claire McCaskill and the two you mentioned who wrote that article with the picture of D-Day, using it to try to prop themselves up in their position, but they've never done the hard thing. And I know in recent years, there was kind of a wave of, you got like an Eli Crane and some other guys like that who did the hard thing. And so I wonder if maybe we just need more people who did the hard thing to say, all right, as much as I want to not get into government because it's so wicked, maybe I need to get into government. Or
maybe more accurately, that's what I'm being called to do.
Yeah.
The word vocation is something that we have lost in this country. We don't talk about vocational schools, but we don't talk about vocations and a calling to be a husband, a father, a mother, a homemaker, a business person, a military member, and maybe even a politician could be a vocation if we didn't have such scum in it. I want to just cover a story real quick here. This is a good story. We're going to go out on D-Day with two sets of heroes. This one is an individual who was an officer. He was a captain, and he's being celebrated by the Diocese of Raleigh, North Carolina. His name was Philip B. Edelin. Is that right? Edelin. He was a Catholic priest. He died at Normandy, ministering to those, saying mass before the invasion, and their parish is now recognizing his sacrifice on this day, which I think is important. There were a lot of silent heroes, people whose names you never heard, and people who signed up to do the hard thing. One of the hardest things is showing up without a gun in a gunfight and doing it on purpose, because your job is to provide aid and spiritual support. And so those people, like chaplains who go into a war zone that actually land on a beach with you, what does that tell you? There's something that is a real soldier that is doing God's work, but also the work of the military, which is being where the fight is. So just a little memory of that. There were plenty of chaplains who lost their lives. And you know what mass they said, Garrett, before that invasion there in Normandy?
The Catholic Mass.
The traditional Latin Mass, which was the only Mass that anyone knew. Yeah. It turns out it scares Satan, and it also scares the U.S. government, because the kind of men that go to a Latin Mass are also the same kind of men that tell you that there is an order in this world, and it's always existed.
What would those men be labeled today?
Extremists.
By the FBI, Kyle. Yeah.
Let me just show you a couple, since you wanted to talk about this. I wanted to bring up these guys here. You want to talk about some extremists, savages that would not be allowed in today's military because they showed up as you and I signed up to do one thing, to kill. They're wearing war paint. They had mohawks. This is the Filthy 13, also known as the Dirty Dozen. There have been books written and movies and so on. Garrett, you want to do a little reflection on these savages, these animals that are out there that help win the day?
Yeah, this is probably just about my favorite group of people, of men, war fighters from World War II, because of that savagery, because of that willingness to say, it's not enough to just show up. It's not enough to have joined the paratroopers, because if you don't know, think back then, jumping out of airplanes was a new thing, and people were like, no, I ain't doing that. I ain't signing up for that. But you got jump pay. And so a lot of guys are like, well, maybe the jump pay will be nice. And also, how awesome would it be to jump in to Europe and to fight our bad guys that way, to try to get behind enemy lines and kill our enemies and just be like in the shit. And they did. And of course they were savage like this. And so I love these guys because 12 of them had some type of Native American heritage. And one of them, a guy named Jake McNeese, he I forget the tribe and all that right now.
Choctaw.
Yeah, so he's like, you know what? I'm gonna lean into my heritage. And I think the piece I really value here is look at what America did to Native Americans. Yet this guy with that heritage said, you know what? I'm still gonna lean into it and the warrior culture that I come from.
That's
and
right.
so he cuts himself the mohawk, he puts the war paint on, and then 11 other guys with some native blood were like, you know what, we're doing that too. And that's to instill fear in your enemy. And then one other guy who didn't have any Native American blood, but they accepted him in, he said, I'm doing it too. And that's soldiering right there too.
That's right.
You don't care about the race or the background, the religion, whatever, you name it, you don't care. You really do become one. And so then these dudes, the Filthy 13, they jumped in with the 101st Airborne. I was in the 2nd battalion, but they were in the... Yeah, go ahead.
They are a saboteur demolition section that was sent in with the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. Their goal was to sabotage and destroy enemy targets, and then they were actually put back into action again, and multiple times. They ended up at Bastogne. They ended up in the Netherlands. These guys fought, as sort of the broader Battle of the Bulge. Like, these guys were in it.
Yep. And think of that. Think of that mission. Think of that mission. One, it's badass. Two, good luck, because that's why it was a small unit. So it's like small unit tactic stuff, because they're basically trying to infiltrate to sabotage enemy equipment, whether it be vehicles or food storage areas or weapons caches or whatever, entrenchments. So they're trying to infiltrate and essentially blow this stuff up. Like,
I'm seeing 5 KIAs from the unit. I'm seeing 5 of them taken as POWs. I'm seeing several wounded in actions. Very few people that were associated either on the front end or on the back end of this group walked out of it without without being unscathed. And the great story, and I think this is the story of all the kind of fighting men that you and I know, like the really savage dudes. This guy, Jake McNeese, who went by the nickname McNasty, as you would imagine, he eventually was kicked out of the military February of 1946 because he got into one too many fights with the MPs. Like somebody that couldn't be tamed and took that untamed spirit and said, I'm going to go bring it to my enemies, because otherwise I'm going to be doing it at home. I'm going to be doing it back in Ponca City, Oklahoma. But I'd rather not do that. I'd like to go bring it to some Nazis. I'm going to take this untamed spirit, which is what men have done for ages, and they've taken it to the battlefield. We don't see kids wanting to do that today necessarily. We see weakness. In fact, one of my favorite sergeant majors that I knew, he was a dad of one of the guys I trained with in combat control. And he was busted twice down from sergeant major. He was a special operator that served at least 3 tours in Vietnam specifically. He jumped into Panama because he snuck onto the bus because he heard they were doing a jump, and he just got on the bus. And by the time they'd done the briefing, they were like, who the hell are you? And he was like, I'm Sergeant Major Vale. I'm going.
I'm here.
Broke his leg on landing, like you'd expect. The guy ended up retiring as an E7 because he punched out a general again. And it turns out if you do that too many times, they eventually will retire you out. A man who made it from up to E9, back down at E7, worked his way back up to E9, and busted back down and retired at E7. These are the kind of warriors that we used to field in this country. That's when America knew that it was right.
That's who you should want fighting your wars.
That's right. And people that are unruly at home, like that are a problem in garrison. Right. The men who don't know how to handle garrison are the ones that tend to be the ones, and this is just from a lot of experience around friends like this, and I know you have the same. The guys that are unruly and are the worst guys stateside are the ones that you want right next to you when shit starts getting really real. And that happens too for people in law enforcement. People that are a pain with their paperwork. They might be tactically sound, and they might be the one that's going to pull the guy off your back whenever things get real ugly.
Yep, it's so true. And I think in a lot of ways it shows the inner man, like the inner. Well, I'll put it to you like this. Exodus 15:3 says, "The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name." I mean, that's what it comes down to for me. I don't need all of your paperwork and your red tape. Give me my gun. Train me up how I need to be trained. Send me off with a group of like-minded individuals. And we know the risk. We know the potential cost. Kyle just listed off the KIAs and POWs, and then McNasty getting booted. We know the inherent risk. That's why we signed up for it. And I would say, not just in the military, that's why we signed up for it. This life of, I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, and I'm going to fully accept the responsibility that comes with that. If that means being canceled from the FBI and having to put my stuff in storage and then wait for Garrett to come to El Paso so we can move it halfway across Texas and then go to Torchy's Tacos, so be it. If that means I get canceled mid-transfer for doing the right thing, so be it. If that means whatever this new life is, so be it.
Yeah. Yesterday we had a little joke at the end with the palate cleanser about the guy who puts on the MAGA hat basically said, I choose violence. And that's a funny way of looking at it. But
yeah,
those who signed up to be armed and to stand in the way of whatever's the other team, the team that doesn't care about righteousness, that doesn't care about truth, we choose violence. You may not get physical violence from us. That may not be asked of us at that moment. but it's on the table. If you don't think that's on the menu, you haven't seen the menu. And that's the problem with folks that are starting to tangle with this. We've got a lot of these Claire McCaskill types that are out there that have been living very soft and gently. We've got members of our ruling elite class in the politician sphere that have been living very, very gentle lives, and everything can be handled with a word or an email, or they can cancel somebody's job. You haven't seen what it takes when certain people decide that, you know what, violence is on the table today. We used to say at the FBI Academy, I would hear instructors say it all the time, and I'll say it again. It used to make me sick. They would say, God forbid you ever have to draw your weapon and use it in the line of duty. And I always said, you know what? You guys are a bunch of effing pussies. Because God put me in the place where that has to happen. Because I've already agreed to that burden. And so have you. And so has everybody who's ever served in uniform, at least the ones that I dealt with. If you signed up, you knew what was on the table. It was on the menu. Whether you were going to order it or not, it was always a possibility. It meant up to and including your life. It meant up to and including your limbs. There are people in our chat right now, like our friend Eric Jason, lost limbs over this. Why? Because they signed up. They knew what they were getting into. Does it mean they're thrilled about it? No. But it was on the menu. And they took the whole thing and they said, yep, I'm sitting down at this table. Let's do it. And give me the grab bag. Here it comes. And I know that, because I served with those guys. I've got, we both have friends that we didn't bring home because of these type of operations, because people had the courage of conviction that they were doing the right thing. We don't have that in this country today. We can't generate that kind of momentum again for a while until we get right with God in this nation. And we're seeing it, because that's how you end up with this nonsense. That's how you end up with somebody looking at pornography at a bar as a joke. And we know that's a real possibility. And we also know that that person could be a woman who's actually a man.
Excuse me, ma'am. No porn at the bar.
Oh, it's okay. I'm transgender.
Oh, I had no idea. Do whatever you want all the time.
Failed citizenship test. Not returning your cart. It's real simple stuff, folks. It's little mindset attitudes that show us exactly what you're about. Garrett, what do you guys got coming up on AMRAD for this weekend? And we'll start to sign this thing off.
Yeah, we got George Hill coming on, so that should be fun. Good. Last time he was on, I don't know, I forget where I was. I was somewhere else. So George came on, and so it'll be the three of us, and we're gonna probably touch on we're definitely gonna touch on an interesting topic to the three of us, me, George, and Steve. Something that goes way back to when we first were all brought in for our transcribed interviews. So we're going to hit on that. And then, whatever else, maybe a little bit about Marcus's stuff and my legal things. Tomorrow, actually, we have our brief to the court is due. The ACLJ put out a pretty good podcast recently, talked about Marcus and I both, which is good. And so we'll see where that goes. But yeah, we'll have George on this weekend. Other than that, who knows, man? Who knows where it will lead? The last thing I will say is Psalm 144:1. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. We're at war again. I mean, if we haven't made that clear yet, I'll just straight up say it. We are at war again. Kyle and I have been at war since before we got suspended. We didn't know it. We thought, well, we're protected. We're taking these things to Congress. We're abiding by legal protections. They sprung their trap. They are the ones who started the battle and the war, but we have the Lord, and blessed be his name. He's our rock. He has trained us and brought us up for this.
Amen. Thanks for coming on this morning. You brought up the filthy 13. I thought it would be wrong for me to cover that solo, so I appreciate you jumping in there. Folks, you can follow Garrett. You can see his handle right there. I'll throw him full on the screen, at GOBActual, where he catches hot takes and spicy scripture as he dishes it out to those who are wicked and those who are wise alike on X/Twitter. Anyway, thanks for coming on, buddy. I look forward to it. I'll see you guys on Saturday as well.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
You bet, man. All right, folks. Last little push over here. If you guys want to support the program, you can buy a bag or more. I would get a 12 ounce of the black truffle if I were you. That's what I would do. Go get the Go get the best of the best when it comes to jerky. It's matthatjerky.com/Kyle. That tags us. If they have a better promo code, you can always use a better promo code, but go through our website and it'll tag the show, matthatjerky.com/Kyle, and promo code Kyle will save you 20% if you don't see another deal. They've got a deal for Father's Day for a box right now, but if that's just a sampler pack, if you just want to go straight for the good stuff, get the USDA Prime, Black Truffle, USDA Prime, roasted garlic, both outstanding. They are salty, they are not too sweet, and they are very tender, meaty, good, real food. They're an excellent snack if you guys are interested. I've got some on the desk. You know I do. I'm almost done with it, but I've got the gourmet flank sitting right here. All right. That's about it for the day. We got two more things. I got a palate cleanser. I wouldn't leave you going on this. This is actually, I found out, a joke, but it does tell us about kind of the weakness and the silliness of I couldn't tell this was a joke, and neither can you. That's what I'm going to just say right up front. These are the goofy people that are in our country. This is why we can't do another D-Day, because we've got this pretty lady doing a credible impersonation of someone that could live right next door to you. I'll just give it that without any more prep. Here we go.
Today I'm taste testing tea because I've never had any before. So I'm trying Sleepy Time tea, and I got the big one because I'm assuming that I'll probably like it. So I've got this out of the package. It's just the square of tea. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I already have my hot water sitting right here. So this is what it looks like. And then you just dump it in. Let me get a spoon quick. All right, so you stir it around, and I'm assuming it'll dissolve into the tea at some point, maybe just in a couple minutes. It's been a few minutes and nothing has happened. I tried it, obviously, and it was a total mess, so they really should make something that contains it. Otherwise, it just goes everywhere. 0 out of 10.
0 out of 10. I love that she says it's pretty self-explanatory, and then she cuts open the containment bag, right? Which is great. The filter bag. Look, that's a pirate parody. I get it. She does these things. It's comedy. That's brilliant. It's brilliant comedy, because she's exactly like that poor lady that didn't know that you could just pull lemons off the tree and eat the lemons, that she thought there was something done to them, that you had to go to the store. The problem with really good parody like that is it looks real, and it definitely could be real. Good on her for pointing out the silliness of our time. I think there's no better way to do it than through humor and comedy, and so she did a great job. But also, man, we could totally believe that we have neighbors that do that stuff, don't we? Like, don't you probably have a Gen Z young lady or male that doesn't know how to make tea? How are they going to go to war and land on a beach? They're not. They're just not. All right, let's do a 5-star review. Here we go. This one's a little bit of a long one. This is from Mama Blaine, coming in on May 20th. We had a big push on May 20 and 21, by the way. We really appreciate you guys leaving the 5-star reviews. Make sure you leave yours, and we'll read it on the show as well. Intelligent, passionate, balanced commentary, 5 stars. I started listening after hearing Kyle on the Bongino show. I was intrigued by his story and maddened that he and the other FBI agents who are loyal to the Constitution and the U.S. were treated as they were. Each episode alerts me to more activities by our government agencies that are wrong, unethical, and illegal. He speaks the truth with integrity and honesty. He's factual without being a soapbox. I appreciate Kyle's perspective, both as a professional, as a dedicated Christian, husband, father, and a man in today's society. We need more men like him. Thank you, Mama Blaine. I appreciate it. We're doing the best we can with what we were given. Who knew that we'd be called for such a time as this? But such is life. I hope you guys will check out and make sure you flag the rumble.com/Catholic vote or youtube.com/Catholic vote. If you guys will grab those websites, you will be able to see the new Between the Lines. It is a reflection that I've been working on all week, and I think you guys will really appreciate what they come up with. We delivered it with a fever, if you guys can imagine that. And when I was done, the producer, who's my friend Scott, said, you can have a fever anytime. So hopefully we tapped into some truth there for you. Have a happy D-Day. Honor those who gave it all. Try to be more like them. Try to be courageous and bold, and we will see you tomorrow for Friendly Friday. God bless all of you. See you in the morning.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.